Because this morning, Huffington Post and AOL announcing its latest online destination is going to be called Huffington Post Black Voices. And remember, you'll be able to ask your own questions about the new site using hashtag NABJ Huffington on Twitter. But to introduce the new site, its mission and her vision for the ongoing evolution of our industry, please join me in welcoming Ms. Arianna Huffington.
So much, Lester. Thank you all for inviting me. I'm really honored to be here. And before I say anything else, I want to acknowledge the founders who are sitting, I understand, mostly on the second row, and without whom this conference would not be possible. Please stand. When I spoke recently in California, I joked that I was really born in Fresno and I had cultivated this accent to give myself an air of being an ethnic minority, which is very popular these days everywhere except in Arizona. And I got 27 emails and letters from people asking me, how exactly did you go about changing your accent? And 2 of them were from Fresno, which gives you an idea of the gullibility in certain parts of America, which perhaps explains why we got that last debt ceiling deal. I love the conference's theme, the power of now. It's really so key because that power of now, that fierce urgency of now, is precisely what has been missing from our debate. So while the crises and the challenges facing the African American community have been getting worse, the coverage of all these issues have been getting less. In fact, we have an amazing story on HuffPost Black Voices today by Michael Calderon about how the mainstream media's coverage of African American issues has declined. And this is really, for me, at the heart of the problem. Without that sense of urgency, we're not going to be able to solve these problems. So you remember that famous weekend when Wall Street was in trouble and everybody, all the financial establishments, the political establishments came together, they threw everything against the wall. They said we cannot allow Wall Street to fail. We've never had that sense of urgency when it comes to African American issues, and I believe it's up to us in the media to generate that sense of urgency. You know, sometimes I feel as though I'm living in a split-screen world. Depending on which side of the screen you look at, you have a very different view of what is happening and what the future is going to be like. And nowhere is this more true than it is when it comes to the African American community. On one side of the screen are some of the issues that the Attorney General raised: crashing unemployment, rampant foreclosures, the fact that we have an astounding number of African American men in jail. I mean, you know the numbers. Unemployment is at 16.2%. For black teens, it leaps to a staggering 41%. And African Americans saw their wealth drop by over 50%. Now, if white America had seen its wealth drop by over 50%, the establishments would be acting as though their hair were on fire. It would be all hands on deck to try and find a fix. Now, I know there are many great writers in the room who may castigate me for my mixed metaphors, you know, hair on fire, all hands on deck. So let me give you a third one. Hair on fire, all hands on deck. It could be DEFCON 1. You know DEFCON 1? It could be NORAD, would be scrambling the F-16s and readying the tactical nuclear weapons. But none of that urgency is here, despite these astounding statistics, if you bring them all together, are truly a state of national emergency. USA Today columnist Dwayne Wickham, I don't know if he's here, but he told the Huffington Post today that a cataclysm is coming and the national media is not ready for it. And as I was writing my speech and putting all these numbers together yesterday, I looked up on my muted television, and there was a breaking news chyron that came up. So I waited. The breaking news was, Casey Anthony's lawyers question her probation order. Really? That's breaking news? When our breaking news is about Casey Anthony, the balloon boy, the pastor who wanted to burn the Quran, and when our political breaking news is about a manufactured crisis that did not have to happen about raising the debt ceiling, then there is an end of empire feeling in the air. You know, Arnold Toynbee said that civilizations almost always die by suicide and not by murder. When we're consumed by perverse priorities and fail to see the icebergs about to hit the Titanic, it truly is Nero fiddling while Rome burns. But on the other side of the split screen is really another compelling reality that reflects the second part of the theme of this conference, and that's claiming your destiny. And there are millions of African Americans who are claiming their destiny. There are amazing stories of overcoming obstacles, of innovation, of ingenuity, of creativity. It's really incredible, whether it is in fashion, in music, in sports, the rest of popular culture, including business. The stories are amazing, they're inspiring, and we're covering them starting today on HuffPost Black Voices. Two people we're covering, for example, are Omar Freela, the founder of Green Worker Cooperatives in the South Bronx, and Hank Williams, who runs a Silicon Valley-like program dedicated to nurturing minority-led startups. And it's so important for all of us in the media to put the spotlight not just on what is wrong, but on what is right, on what is working. And it's so important because we need to reignite the hope. We need to make people believe again in the American dream. You know, as an immigrant to this country, I came here because I believed in the American dream. I believe that you can work hard and create a better life for yourself and for your children. But for millions now, the American dream has become a game of chance. 100 million people, not just African Americans, are worse off today than their parents were at a similar age. Upward mobility is becoming a joke. We are now number 10 in upward mobility. Did you know that? We are behind the Scandinavian countries, behind Spain, and behind France. You know, for America to be behind France in upward mobility is a little bit like France being behind us in croissants and afternoon sex. And one of the things that's killing the American dream is our obsession with budget cutting, especially cutting education, which is the escalator in this country, which is our ticket to the American dream. And I know that because my mother was the ultimate deficit financier. We lived in a one-room apartment in Athens, Greece, when I saw a picture of Cambridge, England. And I said, Mommy, I want to go there. And everybody else laughed at me. But she borrowed and sold everything. And yes, she actually created a deficit for our family. Sometimes you have to do that. And she helped me get to Cambridge. And that was what turned around my life. And right now, the hardest thing I'm looking at is the incredible waste of energy, skills, creativity that are in abundance in the African American community. But we are not doing our part to help our children claim their destinies. And you know that kind of canard that we're hearing a lot of, that African American families, like all American families, need to tighten their belts, and as they're tightening their belts, the government needs to tighten its belt too. You've heard that, right? Well, you know, the exact opposite is the truth. As we have to tighten our belts, the government needs to step up. That's been at the heart of American prosperity and American success until now. But how much time and energy are we spending as journalists focusing on all these problems? I feel pretty blessed right now because I don't have to just gripe about these things, I can do something about them. And that's why I'm thrilled that it is today that we are launching HuffPost Black Voices to cover all these issues, both sides of the split screen, obsessively. And not just to give statistics, but to tell stories. Because it's by telling stories that we can capture people's hearts and their imaginations and their hope and belief that we can actually do something fundamental about it. Throughout history, that's been the way we changed everything. And throughout history, it's when we, storytellers, can tell the story that changes the way we look at the world. And now we have hundreds of thousands of storytellers around the world, armed with camera phones, with laptops, and a willingness, above all, to bear witness. And African Americans are wired, connected, and social. More likely than whites to use social media, to become involved with social issues and causes. And as I'm sure you know, 25% of Twitter users are African Americans, approximately double the percentage of the African American population. I'm particularly excited to know that there are many college students here who are going to be covering what's happening. And they're with the NABJ monitor, TV, radio, and we would love them to cross-post whatever you're writing on the Huffington Post to give it even wider distribution. And remember that we also have 40 open positions at the AOL Huffington Post Media Group. And if you come to our booth, which is number 609, our patch Huffington Post Media Group, we can discuss all these opportunities with you. Our teams are here, because the Huffington Post Media Group is both a journalistic enterprise with now over 1,300 professional journalists on the payroll, and a platform that is available for thousands of bloggers to come and use it to convey their ideas, write about their books, their projects, whatever they want, from politics to fashion, from music to sports. And we are very lucky to have a trio of exceptional African-American women overseeing our HuffPost Black Voices. Two of them are here, and I would love them to stand. Sheila Johnson, of course, the famous co-founder of BET, and Rebecca Tara, a wonderful writer. And I don't know if Derek is there, but Derek Murphy, who heads business for us, you should stand too, Derek. So ultimately, bearing witness is the highest calling for journalists and for all citizens, especially at such a time of multiple crises and struggles for millions of people. But we've never had more or better tools and greater opportunities to have our voices heard than we have today. So let me end the way I began. I love the message of this conference. I love the power of now. And I love the plea to claim your destiny. So I want to urge all of us today, whether we are African American journalists or Greek American journalists or Latino journalists, or whether our families came on the Mayflower, I want to urge all of us to live up to our responsibility to tell the story of our times, and to bring a much-needed urgency to the debate, because that's the only way to help millions of people claim their destinies, use their gifts, reignite their hopes, fulfill the American dream, and turn our country around. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arianna. So we have a few questions that came in via Twitter we want to throw at you. You described the firing of OWN CEO, Christina Norman, as a lesson for all women. Can you explain that, what you meant?
Yes, Christina Norman is the third woman overseeing HuffPost Black Voices. And of course, she has been an incredibly successful entrepreneur, businesswoman, president of MTV, president of home television, and then she was very publicly fired. And I know that for women especially, that becomes a moment when we feel this is it. And so the message, I think, that as Christina writes beautifully in her blog post today on HuffPost Black Voices, for all of us, whether women or men, but especially women, because we tend to internalize failure more, is that when one door closes, another door opens. And in fact, very often, the next door gives us opportunities that otherwise would not be available. For example, as Christina says, she loves the fact that now she's involved editorially, that she's writing. It's just a way to fulfill a different part of ourselves. And the message for me, as I have had many, many failures in my life, is to get up one more time than we fall down. It's the message of resilience. It's the message of seeing failure not as the opposite of success, but as a stepping stone to success. And I think it's a message that is more important now than ever, and more important for women than anyone else, because we tend to bring so many self-judgments to everything we do. I tell my children, I have 2 daughters in college, I tell them all the time, remember, my second book was rejected by 36 publishers. What if I had given up at number 25? Instead, I went into a bank in London, where I lived at the time, and asked the bank manager for a loan. And for some reason, he gave it to me, and I still send him a Christmas card every year. And I feel that, like, in fairy tales, when a hero or a heroine is lost in the forest, there are all these helpful animals that come along to help them. Well, in life, too, there are many helpful animals in the guise of human beings that help us along the way. We just need to recognize them.
You noted in your comments a moment ago that there are a number of openings, paid openings at Huffington Post, but you also continue to rely on unpaid contributors. Will that be the same with Black Voices? And how do you respond to critics that say that hurts professional journalists?
I just really need to explain to everyone that we are 2 things. A professional journalistic enterprise with, as I said, over 1,300 journalists on payroll, and a platform, the way Yelp, Facebook, Wikipedia are platforms. People can choose to participate in the platform if they have something they want to write that requires wider distribution, or not to participate in the platform. We are not dependent on them. Half of Black Voices will be there all the time, manned by professionals. If there are others who are already, say, posting something on your own blog, or wanting to post something on the Huffington Post Black Voices site because you want to give it distribution, you're very welcome. But nobody is expecting it. There are no deadlines. There are no responsibilities. It's more the way I may come on your show. Last night I was on Lawrence O'Donnell's show. I don't get paid. Why do I do that? I do it because I want my ideas to get a wider distribution. And it's up to me to accept the invitation to appear on these shows or not. So I want to invite you all to blog if you want to. I'll give you my email address. It's arianna@huffingtonpost.com. And if you want to use our amazing platform that now has 117 million unique visitors a month, that's the future of the internet. And what is unique about us is that we are both. Most of the time, an operation is either a platform or a journalistic enterprise. The Huffington Post is both. In fact, we just reached our 100 millionth comment. So that's how engaged our community is.
Actually, that leads to one of the questions we received, that you had recently announced 100 million user comments. Discuss your strategy for reader engagement.
So the reader engagement is at the heart of the Huffington Post, and was so from the beginning. By which I mean that we invite our readers not just to receive information, but to comment on it. And from the beginning, we wanted to avoid the worst aspects of the internet, of trolls and people hiding behind anonymity to make vile remarks. So we have both the most advanced comment moderating technology and 30 human moderators who pre-moderate comments 24/7. I think what has helped our community grow is the fact that you can come there and be assured of a civil environment. And be assured that you may be criticized, but you're not going to be called names.
There's another question that came in over Twitter. In a recent interview, you stated that President Obama, could do more about job creation. Please discuss and explain.
Yeah. He could definitely do more about job creation. The White House dramatically underestimated the jobs crisis. And right now the president said that after the debt deal, he's going to pivot to jobs. That has been said multiple times since 2009. And the truth is that the administration should never have pivoted away from jobs. Because you know what, if we don't get jobs right, if we don't grow the economy, we're never ever going to be able to solve the deficit crisis. In fact, every economist you talk to, including Larry Summers, who was at the White House, is saying that the current deal is going to basically reduce the growth of the economy. And as a result, exacerbate the deficit crisis. And for me, it's a little bit like, look at the economy as a stalled car. And instead of restarting it with jumper cables, we've taken out the gas tank. It's not a very smart move, and we're going to pay a heavy price for it.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for questions. I want to thank you so much for your remarks. Congratulations on the site. Thanks to everyone who has participated in the opening ceremony of our 36th annual convention. This event is ending, but the convention has just begun, so enjoy all it has to offer, this camaraderie of your fellow journalists, and all this great city has planned for you to experience. Have a great morning, and for those early risers, well, today's Thursday. I'll see you Saturday on Today.